Good morning from the Lake Francis campground here in Valier, Montana. Today we're making our push into Canada. The original plan was to stay here like 2 nights and just kind of rest, but by the time we stayed 2 nights, we were just getting caught up on all our work and we didn't have any time to relax. So we ended up staying 4. And Valier has been a nice little town. You know, we've been able to scoot around on the ATV, and there's like ATVs everywhere. So this is like side-by-side country. You know, they have 2 little restaurants which cook quality food. We were very, very impressed with the fresh and local ingredients. And there's a meat market in town, a little grocery store, and the AT&T internet is blazing hot here. The Verizon is fairly good, but right now we just dumped over there, and I see on that building there's a sign that says Wi-Fi hotspot. So for 20 bucks a night, you get 30 amp electricity, dump station, water fill up, and a Wi-Fi hotspot over at the toilets. Not bad at all. So if you're like making that push to Canada and you're gonna be like crossing at Sweetgrass or something, I would strongly recommend staying here. This place is great. Alright guys, we just completed a personal watercraft inspection and we have never encountered those before. And I'm kind of wondering if it's because we're here in the summer months, and normally we come down like, you know, the fall and maybe the traditional watercraft season's over. But we've encountered 3 just in this stretch between Wyoming and Montana. Hey, so there's a change in plans. We thought we were going to be crossing up by Sweetgrass, but when we typed it into our navigation systems, it says it's quicker to cross up here at Carway. But it said it was 25 minutes shorter drive, and it was also a new route to us. But I guess taking the 15 up towards Sweetgrass would have been a new route. But this one's a little closer to the mountains, so we'll take it. Today's video, we're going to discuss things you need to prepare for when crossing into Canada from the United States. And first off, let's talk about guns. We carry guns with us. Canada, they don't like all guns. They will allow you to transport certain guns through their country. Generally speaking, like automatic rifles and pistols are not allowed, or sawed-off shotguns, but hunting rifles and regular old shotguns and 22 long rifles, those are totally okay. All you need to do is go onto Google, type in Canadian Firearms Declaration. It'll be the first thing that pops up. You fill out the form and have that ready, so when you get to the border, all you have to do is say, I have to declare firearms. You go in and you pay $25 and you're done. Pretty darn easy, truthfully. The next thing I'm going to talk about is gasoline. Historically, gas has always been more expensive in Canada. I'm not sure the whole reasons why, but it is. I also know that right now, Canada is on like a 7-year historical low gas price. So that is awesome news. And I also think the exchange rate between the Canadian dollar and the US dollar is still very favorable. So those are all things working in our favor now, and for anybody else traveling, you know, roughly around July 2017. So you also need to be carrying your passport when you cross into Canada. If you don't have one, they're very easy to get and a good thing to have. Now, Canada also has some rules and regulations in regards to tobacco and alcohol. I can't remember them off the top of my head, but you don't want to come up with box loads of alcohol or tobacco. You know, if you have a bottle of wine or two in the RV, or, you know, maybe a carton of cigarettes, I'm pretty sure you're going to be totally fine on those. So the next thing is something we had already lined up, but you need to call your credit card companies and your bank. Let them know you're going to be traveling into Canada. They're going to ask for a rough time frame. And here's a little tip that we have picked up. And I don't know why it took them so long for them to do this, because this is our second massive road trip around the country. We went into New Mexico, which was one of the states that we didn't think we were going to be visiting, and my card got deactivated, and I talked to somebody with a brain, and they said, you know what, you do a lot of traveling, we're just going to set your card up on trucker status. So if you guys do a lot of traveling or are full-timers, you know, inquire to see if your bank or credit card company has this thing called trucker status, because truckers, heck, they never know where they're going or when they're going to be there, and that's kind of like us. And you also need to call your cell phone companies and double check your plans. For example, I have the AT&T phone in our house, not for long, we're probably going to be just killing it because we're not happy with them. But I called AT&T today. So the other phone in our household is Rebecca's, and it is a Verizon phone. And that one we know for a fact is already set up for Mexico and Canada, because we have business partners that we talk to in Canada all the time on that line. So I just remembered one more thing. If you're traveling with your four-legged friends, you know, they always say you have to have like a health certificate, but I'll be damned. We and none of our friends that have done the trip repeatedly have ever been asked for a health certificate. So, you know, do what you may, but we did it the first time and said screw it the rest of the times. But make sure you do have your dog's rabies certificate. That's the main one right there.
So we just made it to the Canadian border and took a little bit to figure out which building to go to, but we're coming up to the Canadians border station and we'll be checking in with them.
Good morning. How are you today?
Good.
Let me get my sunglasses off. I know that's always one of the things. I have some firearms to declare. All right. Yes, and 2 dogs.
How long are you going to be in Canada on the way through?
Give or take 7 days, roughly.
You going to Alaska, I assume?
Yeah, heading home.
She come closer.
Sorry, what was that?
She come closer, whoever.
Oh, honey, come closer.
Alright. So do you guys have anything in mind to leave or sell in Canada?
No.
What do you have for firearms or weapons?
20. Oh, a 22 long rifle and a 12 gauge pump.
Okay, any other firearms or weapons?
No.
Handguns?
No. I know. No.
About pepper spray?
No.
Small pepper spray going
No.
first? Okay. Any firewood in here?
No.
Cash and monetary instruments of $10,000 or more?
No.
Be nice, but no.
So there's 2 things. You got
Yes.
boat canoes on there, right?
Yes.
So the watercraft people are gonna, when we're all done, they're gonna still want to look at those watercraft.
Yes.
I guess whether it's even us or something.
Oh, it's a good thing.
So park to the right.
Okay.
Leave your rifles wherever they are.
Yeah.
Bring in your information. Both of you come in with your passports. Do the rifle thing first.
All right.
Then you'll need to have one inspection after that. Okay.
Great. Can we potty the dogs over there and then head in and do the rifle thing?
Sure.
Thanks. I have to say, I really love our Canadian neighbors. It's always a pleasurable experience. Now we just need to pull over and go do the paperwork for the guns, which is like nothing to stress about. And then there's another watercraft inspection. But this one was unusual. They actually want us to both come in for the guns.
Welcome to Canada. And you know what? Canadians had Canada Day a couple of days ago and celebrated 150 years. So happy birthday, Canada. We're really excited to be here and spend a few days with you guys. So we just got through customs, border crossing, and you might wonder what takes the longest when you go through Canadian customs. Well, normally for us it's that we have firearms to declare, and so you have to go inside and do the paperwork, and they do a background check and But this time, in addition to that, and apparently this is very new, we also had to have an invasive species inspection of our watercraft. You guys know that we carry the 2 kayaks. Now, we have had watercraft inspections. This was the 5th inspection since we left Kansas. And apparently this is all new because one of the lakes in Montana tested positive this year. And prior to that, this area had always been low risk. But since that has happened, all of the surrounding states are doing watercraft inspections as well as Montana. And actually, I guess they closed the lake in Montana down to watercraft until they can get the situation under control. You may already know this, but the species that they are looking for that have invaded the area, there's 3 things. The first one, I think most people know about, is the zebra mussel. And then there's also the guanca mussel. And there's also a Eurasian plant. I don't even know how to describe it. But he showed us actual specimens of these mollusks, and they're eensy tiny. You think they're big, but they're not. They're little tiny things, and you can kind of understand then why they're so particular about doing these inspections, because they could be so easily transported. He said that you have to use boiling hot water to clean them off if you do happen to get them, that they can live up to 30 days on your boat, and that's if it's completely dry. If your boat is still wet, then that can last even longer. So you really want to drain your boat out, dry it out, clean it off. He also said that it wasn't just the lakes that they were concerned about, but there's lots of irrigation for farming in this part of the world. And if it gets into the irrigation system, then you're talking like massive problems. Millions of dollars of expense, I'm sure. So that's why they're being so particular. And he said all of this started in 2017 because of the positive test in Montana. The reason that came up is we mentioned that we thought, well, maybe it was because we had come down in the fall and gone home early in the spring historically, that we've not had all of these water inspection experiences. And he said no, that actually this all just started this year. So there's your education for the day.
Alright guys, well I am thoroughly exhausted. We've put on 450 miles today, and since we're in Canada, I don't know what that converts to in the metric system without getting my phone out. And we just pulled up to our friend's house, and it looks like they have 46 feet of parking space for us in their driveway, so that's awesome. Just gonna sign off for the day. Thanks for watching. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you later.